Hi friends. Today you need to grab your boombox, you need to grab your headphones, grab your Walkman, because today we are talking about cassette tapes. The compact cassette, also known as a cassette tape, audio cassette, cassette, or just tape, was invented by Philips in 1963. And if you recall from my video about CDs, Philips was also instrumental in the development of the CD. Cassettes became massively popular in the 80s thanks to the advent of the boombox, portable recording equipment, and portable stereo units. But one of their obstacles in their path to stardom and overtaking vinyl was that cassettes are very easy to steal. Or at least they used to be. Put it in your pocket, walk away. However, tapes were the dominant format for music between the years of 1985 when they overtook vinyl, and 1992 when they were overtaken by CDs. And fun fact, the iconic Sony Walkman portable tape player sold over 350 million units. As a child, I distinctly remember having my own Walkman that played tapes and listening to Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell 2 tape that belonged to my mom. That album rocks. A cassette tape contains two miniature spools, which has a magnetically coated polyester-type plastic tape that gets passed between the two spools, creating essentially a miniaturized reel-to-reel. Cassette tapes are 4 inches by 2.5 inches by 1/2 inch. The tape itself is referred to as 1/8 tape, but in reality it's slightly larger than that at 0.15 inches. A monotrack on a tape is 1.5 millimeters wide with an unrecorded guard band in between them. A stereo track is further divided into left and right channels, which are 0.024 inches each. When playing, the tape moves past the playback head at 1 7/8 inches per second, or 4.76 centimeters per second. Tapes come in various lengths and are often denoted as being C60, C90, or C120. A C60 tape is 30 minutes per side, 90 is 45, and 120 is 60 per side. But from what I understand, the C120s are not very common. As I mentioned, the tapes are filled with a magnetic tape, and when tapes are being recorded, an electrical signal is converted into a magnetic field. And when the tape passes by the record head, a little magnetic coil in the tape, the magnetic particles on the tape arrange themselves in proportion to the strength of the magnetic field applied to them. The loudness of the signal and other characteristics are represented in the magnetic particles on the tape. And this process happens in reverse when a tape is played back. The playhead turns the magnetic information on the tape into an electrical signal, which then gets converted into sound. There's also an erase head on the tape, which uses a constant electrical charge to reset the magnetic properties of the tape. While being a portable, economically efficient, and aesthetically very cool format, tape comes with its own set of flaws. Magnetic tape is not an ideal medium for long-term storage, and it can begin to degrade after 10 or 20 years. Obviously, your mileage may vary. I've inherited some tapes from my dad that play perfectly fine after 50 years. A common occurrence that we've all likely had is when your tape deck eats or chews your tape. This occurs when there's a malfunction in the tape player, or there is a resistance in the tape path that causes a lack of tension on the spool head, and then the tape gets bundled up and fed out the bottom and ends up getting chewed up in the mechanism of the player. This usually ruined the tape, but we all tried to rewind it by putting a pencil in the spool. Classic. Tapes come with this clear case in most instances. There are also soft shell versions of these too. Like a jewel case on a CD, these can be fragile, but they are inexpensive and easy to replace. Most of the time, if you take care of your stuff, you shouldn't have a problem. But we've all dropped one from time to time and oops. Instead of a booklet like a CD might have, tapes have what's called a Jcard, for obvious reasons. Jcards utilize panels to hold all of your information, and some Jcards can have fold-out panels that are 4, 5, 8 pages long, depending on the manufacturer that you're working with. This one is very simple. This one has a lot of pages that fold out. Very convenient. One of the best things about tapes is the ability to customize the look of the shell, whether it's purple or this gold glitter. Almost infinite possibilities. Like literally there are so many. Something to think about as a musician who's releasing music is that tapes have a limited runtime like all the other physical formats. But unlike CDs, and like a record, you have to think about a tape's runtime in halves, since there is an A side and a B side. So it would behoove you to make sure that your music is arranged in such a way that it can be easily split somewhere in the middle to allow the songs to completely fit on the A side and the back half to completely sit on the B side. Something we encounter with the label that I work with is bands who have songs that are too long, or their album is too long to fit on a tape, so they have to cut music, cut things out, stuff like that. It is unfortunately a fairly regular occurrence. I think this is a side effect of living in an era where we are not often constrained by the physical limitations of things when releasing art. Thanks, iTunes. But it is something to consider. Another thing is that tapes are a vintage format that are produced on vintage equipment. There are a handful of big name manufacturers still operating at like top tier levels. The first one that comes to mind is National Audio Company out of Missouri. But a lot of small run duplicators are using older equipment. They're doing the best they can, so be kind, but it is a format that is prone to error. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I love tapes. I love the portability, the relatively low cost compared to something like vinyl. And as someone who's big into 80s, 90s nostalgia and aesthetics, they just bring me a lot of joy for what they represent culturally. But one thing to consider is that out of CDs, vinyl, and tapes, tapes are considered to have the worst sound quality of the three. Not bad, just not as good as CD or vinyl. That's also very subjective, don't come for me. They have had an underground resurgence lately, which has been a lot of fun, but if you're an audiophile, might want to keep looking.